Saturday night, March 7th, 2026. Somewhere in a military medical facility in Saudi Arabia, the 7th American service member to die in the war with Iran took their last breath. The soldier, an Army service member whose name is being withheld for 24 hours, while family is notified, had been fighting for their life since March 1st, when Iranian forces launched retaliatory attacks across the Middle East in response to the U.S. and Israeli assault on Iran that began February 28th. U.S. Central Command announced the death on Sunday, March 8th, in a somber post on social media. Last night, a U.S. service member passed away from injuries received during the Iranian regime's initial attacks across the Middle East, CENTCOM wrote. The service member was seriously wounded at the scene of an attack on U.S. troops in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on March 1st. This is the 7th service member killed in action during Operation Epic Fury. Major combat operations continue. That final sentence, major combat operations continue, underscores a critical reality. This is not a minor skirmish. This is not a limited strike. This is a full-scale war, and American service members are dying in it. The first 6. A single deadly strike. The 7th death comes just one day after President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance stood at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, honoring 6 U.S. Army Reserve soldiers whose remains were returned to American soil in a dignified transfer ceremony. Those 6 soldiers were all killed in a single Iranian drone strike on March 1st, the same day that left the 7th service member mortally wounded in Saudi Arabia. The attack targeted a makeshift operations center at a Kuwaiti port. According to military sources, the Iranian drone penetrated air defenses and struck the command center with devastating effect. 6 soldiers died immediately or shortly after. Their names, their faces, their stories are now part of the permanent record of this war. Sergeant First Class Nicole Amer, 39 years old, from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. A mother, a soldier, a reservist who answered the call when her country needed her. Captain Cody Cork, 35, from Winter Haven, Florida, though some reports also list him as being from Lakeland. A captain, a leader, someone troops looked up to. Sergeant Declan Cody, 20 years old, from West Des Moines, Iowa. 20. Barely old enough to legally drink alcohol in the United States. He won't celebrate another birthday. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Marzan, 54, from Sacramento, California. A senior officer with decades of experience, someone who had likely served through multiple deployments, multiple wars. This one was his last. Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45, from Indianola, Iowa, though some sources list him as being from Waukee. A field grade officer, a major in the Army Reserves, someone with a family waiting for him to come home. He never will. Sergeant First Class Noah Teachins, 42, from Bellevue, Nebraska. Another senior non-commissioned officer, the backbone of any military unit, gone. These were not active duty soldiers stationed permanently in the Middle East. These were Army reservists, citizen soldiers who maintained civilian careers and families while serving part-time in the military, ready to be called to active duty when needed. They were called, they deployed, they died. The 7th died of wounds in Saudi Arabia. The 7th casualty, the soldier who died Saturday night, was wounded in a separate Iranian attack also on March 1st, this one targeting U.S. troops stationed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Details about the specific attack are limited. The military has not disclosed the exact location within Saudi Arabia, the type of weapon used, or how many other American personnel were wounded in the same strike. What we know is that the soldier sustained serious injuries, serious enough to require intensive medical care, serious enough that, despite the best efforts of military doctors and medics, the soldier could not be saved. After nearly a week of fighting for survival, the injuries proved fatal. The timing is significant. March 1st was the initial wave of Iranian retaliation after the United States and Israel launched what they're calling Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. Iran's response was immediate and widespread, hitting U.S. positions in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia simultaneously. The message was clear. If you attack Iran, American troops across the entire region are targets. Operation Epic Fury, the war. America is fighting Operation Epic Fury. That's the official Pentagon designation for this war. Not a police action, not a peacekeeping mission, not a limited air campaign. An operation with a name that includes the word fury, suggesting intense combat, suggesting sustained operations, suggesting exactly what we're seeing. The war began on February 28, 2026, when U.S.-Israeli forces launched coordinated strikes against Iran. According to multiple sources, including Al Jazeera's comprehensive tracking, at least 1,332 people had been reported killed in U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran by day 8 of the war. That number includes Iranian military personnel, civilian casualties from strikes on populated areas, and collateral deaths from attacks on infrastructure. Israel has struck more than 140 targets in Iran on Sunday alone, according to Israeli military spokesman Brigadier General Efi Dafrin. The targets have ranged from military command centers to ballistic missile facilities to air defense systems to, controversially, oil storage facilities that serve civilian populations as well as military logistics. The United States has focused its strikes on what the Pentagon describes as Iran's command and control infrastructure, its missile production facilities, its naval assets, and its proxy support networks across the region. A U.S. submarine reportedly sank an Iranian naval vessel, killing more than 80 sailors. American airstrikes have targeted facilities across Iran, from Tehran to the coastal areas to sites near the borders with Iraq and Afghanistan, the wider battlefield, Lebanon, Bahrain, and beyond. But this war is not confined to Iran itself. Israel has simultaneously expanded operations into Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah positions and infrastructure. Lebanon's health minister reported Sunday that 394 people have been killed in that conflict, with 83 children among the dead. More than 500,000 people have been displaced from their homes in southern Lebanon. Iran has responded not just with attacks on U.S. military positions, but by striking infrastructure across the region. On Sunday, Bahrain accused Iran of hitting a desalination plant, the first attack on water infrastructure in this war. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed the accusation, but claimed the United States had set the precedent by striking an Iranian desalination plant on Keshem Island. The U.S. set this precedent, not Iran, Araghchi said. This is particularly alarming because desalination plants are literally what keeps Gulf populations alive. These are desert nations. Fresh water comes from the sea, processed through these plants. Attacking them is attacking the ability of millions of civilians to drink, to cook, to survive. If this becomes a pattern, if water infrastructure becomes fair game, the humanitarian catastrophe will be unprecedented. The human cost keeps mounting. Beyond the 7 American service members killed, beyond the 1,332 reported dead in Iran, beyond the nearly 400 killed in Lebanon, there are the wounded, the displaced, the traumatized. CENTCOM also announced Sunday that another U.S. soldier, Major Sorfle Davies, 46, of Queens, New York, died in Kuwait on March 6th during what the Pentagon described as a health-related incident and medical emergency. Davies was a New York City police officer who had served since 2014. He was deployed with the National Guard. The incident is under investigation, and while it's not being classified as a combat death, the timing raises obvious questions about whether the stress of combat operations, the intensity of the deployment, or other war-related factors contributed to his death. Iran has launched what it calls the 27th wave of Operation True Promise, firing missiles at Israel on Sunday. Israeli air defenses intercepted most of them, but the sustained barrage demonstrates Iran's continued capability, despite hundreds of strikes aimed at degrading its military infrastructure. The environmental and economic tolls are severe. Tehran residents woke Sunday to black rain falling from toxic clouds created by burning oil facilities that Israel struck Saturday night. Oil prices have soared to $92.69 per barrel for Brent crude, the highest since 2023, with a 27% increase in just 1 week, the biggest weekly gain since the COVID pandemic in 2020. Political dynamics and strategic questions. Politically, this war has created unexpected tensions even between allies. According to Axios, Israeli strikes on Iranian oil facilities Saturday went far beyond what the United States expected when Israel notified Washington in advance. A U.S. official described the American reaction as simply WTF, unprecedented blunt frustration from an administration that has otherwise fully supported Israeli military operations. The concern is both strategic and political. Strategically, U.S. officials worry that strikes on infrastructure serving ordinary Iranians could rally Iranian society to support the regime rather than weakening it. Politically, the optics are terrible for President Trump. The president doesn't like the attack, a Trump advisor told Axios. He wants to save the oil. He doesn't want to burn it, and it reminds people of higher gas prices. Meanwhile, Iran is undergoing a leadership transition during wartime. On Sunday, Iranian state television announced that Mojtaba Khamenei, the 56-year-old son of the late supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in airstrikes at the start of the war, has been selected as Iran's new supreme leader. Mojtaba has close ties to the Revolutionary Guard, signaling continuity in Iran's hardline stance rather than any softening. President Trump, when asked about the war's duration, said it would continue for a little while and claimed it was going unbelievably good for the U.S. military. He stated that Israel needs 3 more weeks to accomplish its goal of wiping out Iran's military forces. However, a U.S. National Intelligence Council report obtained by the Washington Post found that a large-scale U.S.-led assault on Iran was unlikely to topple the country's government, suggesting that strategic objectives may be more limited than public rhetoric implies. What this means for American families, For the families of the 7 fallen service members, for the family of Major Davies, whose death is under investigation, for the families of every American service member currently deployed to the Middle East as part of Operation Epic Fury. The next 3 weeks that Trump mentioned must feel like an eternity. These are not abstract geopolitical calculations. These are husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. Sergeant Declan Cody was 20 years old. His entire adult life was ahead of him. Sergeant First Class Nicole Amer was 39, likely with children of her own. Major Sorfley Davies was a New York City police officer, serving both his city and his country. The 7th soldier, whose name we don't yet know, fought for a week before succumbing to injuries sustained in Saudi Arabia. As major combat operations continue, as Israel promises many surprises for the next phase of the conflict, as oil burns in Tehran and missiles fly and water infrastructure becomes a target, the human cost of Operation Epic Fury continues to mount. 7 American service members confirmed dead, 1,332 reported killed in Iran, nearly 400 dead in Lebanon, and the war is only in its 2nd week. The question that haunts every war remains unanswered. When does this end? President Trump says 3 more weeks for Israel to accomplish its objectives. But wars rarely stick to timelines, and objectives have a way of shifting once combat begins. For the families waiting for their service members to come home, for the Iranian civilians choking on toxic smoke in Tehran, for the displaced hundreds of thousands in Lebanon, 3 weeks might as well be 3 years. Operation Epic Fury. The name fits. The fury is real. And the bodies keep coming home.